Still remember the exact moment my mother's voice cut through the phone like ice. "Amelia, this wedding, it's an embarrassment. We're not coming. How could you do this to us?" Her words landed heavy in my chest. I was standing in my little apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes and my simple white dress hanging on the door. I had just told them I was marrying Daniel, the kind, hard-working mechanic who fixed cars with grease on his hands and love in his eyes. No fancy degree, no big family name, just a good man who made me feel safe and seen. For 28 years, I had tried to be the daughter they wanted. Straight A's in school, the polite smile at their country club events, the quiet girl who never caused a scene. But the moment I chose love over their approval, everything shattered. That phone call wasn't the first crack. It was the breaking point. I grew up in a house where appearances mattered more than feelings. My father was a successful businessman who loved flashing his success. My mother hosted perfect dinners and made sure everyone knew how well-connected we were. They dreamed of me marrying into the same circle, a lawyer, a doctor, someone who would make them look good at parties. Daniel and I met at the auto shop where I took my car for repairs. He didn't try to impress me with money or status. He listened when I talked about my dreams of opening a small flower shop. He made me laugh on days when the weight of my family's expectations felt too heavy. With him, I didn't have to pretend. When he proposed on a quiet evening by the lake, I said yes without hesitation. For the first time, I felt like my life was truly mine. But when I shared the news, my parents' faces turned cold. "A mechanic," my father scoffed. "After everything we've given you, this is how you repay us." My mother refused to even meet him. "Think about what people will say, Amelia. Our friends will laugh behind our backs." I begged them to give him a chance. I sent photos, told stories about his kindness, explained how happy he made me. Nothing worked. Then came the wedding planning. I chose a modest venue, a beautiful garden hall with fairy lights and fresh flowers. Nothing extravagant, but it was warm and full of love. I invited my parents anyway, hoping they would soften once they saw how real it all was. Instead, 3 days before the wedding, that phone call came. "We're not attending," my mother said flatly. "It would be too humiliating. Tell your guests whatever you want, but don't expect us there smiling for photos." I hung up with tears streaming down my face. My hands were shaking. Daniel held me that night and whispered, "We don't need them to be happy, love. This is our day." But deep down, something inside me broke. How could the two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally treat my joy like a disgrace? The morning of the wedding arrived sunny and bright. I walked down the aisle on my best friend's arm instead of my father's. My heart ached with every step, but when I saw Daniel waiting for me, his eyes full of pure love, a quiet strength began to bloom in my chest. We said our vows under strings of soft lights. Guests cheered and cried happy tears. It was simple, beautiful, and completely ours. Yet even in that moment of joy, a small voice whispered, "What happens when the truth finally comes out?" The first few months of marriage were pure bliss. Daniel and I settled into our cozy home. I started working on my flower shop dream, and he supported every late night and every small win. For the first time, I felt free from the constant pressure to perform. But my parents' silence was loud. They didn't call, they didn't text, not even on holidays. Friends from my old circle would mention in passing how my mother complained at lunches about her disappointing daughter who chose beneath her station. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. Some nights I would lie awake wondering if I had made a terrible mistake by choosing love over family. The pain of their rejection sat heavy in my heart like a stone I couldn't move. Then, 6 months after the wedding, everything changed. I was helping Daniel at the shop one busy Saturday when an older gentleman walked in. His car had broken down on the highway. Daniel worked on it for hours, refusing to charge full price because the man seemed stressed. They talked like old friends. The gentleman left with a fixed car and a grateful smile. What I didn't know was that this ordinary customer was Mr. Richard Harlan, a quiet, extremely successful investor who rarely revealed his wealth. He had built his fortune through smart, ethical deals and stayed humble. A week later, he returned with a proposal that left us stunned. He had been quietly observing how Daniel ran the shop, with honesty, hard work, and real skill. Mr. Harlan offered to invest in expanding it into a full-service garage and auto customization business. Not a small loan, a serious partnership that could change our lives. We were overjoyed, but we decided to keep it private for now. We wanted to build it step by step, without pressure or outside opinions. That's when the first cracks in my family's world began to show. My cousin accidentally let slip during a phone call that my parents had been telling everyone I had thrown my life away. They even skipped a big family gathering because they didn't want to answer questions about what went wrong with Amelia. The betrayal cut deep. Not only had they abandoned me on my wedding day, but they were actively trying to erase my happiness from the family story. I cried in Daniel's arms that night. "They never even gave us a chance," I whispered. "They chose their pride over their own daughter." Daniel held me close. "Then maybe it's time they see what real pride looks like." Slowly, I stopped chasing their approval. I poured my energy into my marriage and our growing dreams. The flower shop opened small but beautiful. Customers loved it. Daniel's garage started picking up more work. Yet the ache of their rejection lingered. I kept wondering, would they ever regret the way they treated me? Would they ever understand the pain they caused? Little did I know, the universe was already preparing their moment of reckoning. A year after our wedding, Mr. Harlan's investment had transformed Daniel's garage into one of the most respected auto businesses in the region. We kept everything low-key, but success has a way of spreading. One evening, my mother called out of nowhere. Her voice was different, softer, almost hesitant. "Amelia, we heard some things about Daniel's business. Is it true?" I stayed calm. "What did you hear, Mom?" She paused. "That he's doing quite well, that some important people are involved." That's when I learned the full story. Mr. Harlan had casually mentioned his new partnership at a high society charity event, the same circle my parents desperately tried to impress. When he spoke proudly about the honest, hardworking young man he had chosen to partner with, my parents were in the room. They froze when they realized it was Daniel. The embarrassment hit them hard. All those months of calling my wedding a disgrace, of telling friends I had ruined my future, now their own social circle was praising the very man they had rejected. My father reached out next. His usual confident tone was gone. "Amelia, we may have been hasty. Perhaps we should meet Daniel properly. Family is important after all." I listened quietly as they stumbled through half apologies and suggestions for a family dinner. But something in me had changed. The girl who once begged for their approval was no longer there. I invited them to the grand opening of our expanded garage and my flower shop cafe that we had built together. It was a beautiful event, simple, warm, filled with real friends and grateful customers. My parents arrived dressed in their finest, trying to act as if nothing had happened. But when they saw the crowd, the success, and the genuine respect people had for Daniel and me, their faces told the real story. During a quiet moment, my mother pulled me aside. Her eyes were glassy. "We were wrong, Amelia. We thought we knew what was best, but we hurt you deeply." I looked at her and felt a strange mix of sadness and peace. "You didn't just miss my wedding, Mom. You missed me, the real me, and I can't keep carrying that pain anymore." I didn't yell. I didn't need to expose ugly secrets or cause a scene. My revenge wasn't loud. It was quiet, honest, and complete. It was building a beautiful life without them at the center. It was choosing love and letting their judgment lose its power over me. In the end, they watched from the sidelines as Daniel and I cut the ribbon together. No grand speeches, no dramatic confrontation, just the simple truth of what we had created shining brighter than any of their old expectations. Today, my relationship with my parents is polite but distant. They try harder now, but the bridge they burned that day before my wedding can never be fully rebuilt the same way. And that's okay. Because I learned the most important lesson through all this heartbreak. Your worth is never defined by someone else's approval, not even your parents. True family isn't about blood or status. It's about the people who stand by you when the world tries to tear you down. I chose love. I chose myself. And in the end, that quiet strength became the most powerful revenge of all. If you've ever been told your happiness is an embarrassment, remember this. Sometimes the greatest comeback isn't proving them wrong with anger. It's building a life so full of light that their darkness simply fades away. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that they are enough. Until next time, stay strong and choose love.